So, Andy Kotelnicki had a press conference and could not give us a concrete answer as to why this Penn State offense has taken such a massive step backwards. Well, I'm going to give you the reasons because there's a lot of them.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State football, and as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. Thank you to the everydayers out there. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. Andy Kotelnicki says the two-quarterback system is here to stay. I'm here to tell you why that's going to be easier said than done. It's going to be difficult to do that moving forward. Tyseer, Denmark, Koby Howard are expected to get more playing time, but with matchups against Ohio State and Indiana, what can we actually expect from them, and why did it take so long to get them that additional playing time? What's actually wrong with the offense? Because Kotelnicki didn't have a concrete answer, but there's plenty of reasons, and I'm going to lay them all out here. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Friendly reminder to let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Be a part of the discussion. As Andy Kotelnicki gave a press conference and didn't have a concrete reason why the Penn State offense isn't where it should be or what it was expected to be. And I get the confusion. I get it from Kotelnicki. You brought back your fourth-year quarterback, both of your fourth-year running backs, the majority, arguably 100% of the offensive line, talent at tight end to replace Tyler Warren, wide receivers out of the transfer portal that were more talented than the group from a season ago. And yet you don't have any answers. You're confused. Well, let's lay it out, because it has to do with the stubbornness of the coaching staff, play calling, coaches, personnel changes, under the radar, underestimate the value. Don't underestimate your assistant coaches. And then the personnel not doing their job. So let's start with the stubbornness aspect of it, because you could have made the necessary changes. And when I say you, this goes to James Franklin, this goes to Andy Kotelnicki, Stan Drayton, Marcus Higgins, for the players that are not doing their job. But they were so overly committed, and we'll never know truly for sure. Now, we could put it on James Franklin, because the second he was fired, Penn State really made an effort, Terry Smith, to put Kaytron Allen as that true running back number one. But they never made any adjustments. For the most part, the media and the fans called it out and said, Kaytron Allen needs to be the guy taking all of the snaps, be that true RB1, and bench Nicholas Singleton. Now, I tried to argue that, hey, you could use Singleton in other ways, use him as a pass catcher, just get him into space. And it sounds like we're going to get that. We're going to get that in the near future. We'll save that for a different conversation. But the reluctance to make that change, why? Because Singleton was good a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. The season wasn't over after Oregon, but Penn State sure operated that way. Kaytron Allen and Singleton were still splitting snaps, even though Allen got more carries against Northwestern. They were alternating drives. Why would Allen go sit on the bench for long periods of time, long stretches throughout the game? That is why we are here, because of that stubbornness to make necessary changes. Same thing could be said at wide receiver. Same thing could be said at tight end. And here's what I think about. If Singleton, the wide receivers, and Luke Reynolds, for example, I think Luke Reynolds he hasn't played up to his potential, and that's tough to do in year two. I understand that. But Rapplier and Dinkins, at least they're not making significant mistakes that Reynolds has been making. I digress from that. But if these guys aren't making the plays on game day that they should be making, that the signs are there in practice. Practice doesn't look completely different as opposed to game day. So they had to know that Singleton was struggling. They had to know that Luke Reynolds wasn't giving his best or wasn't able to produce at a high level. Same thing with the wide receivers, that they should have rotated in Koby Howard and Tyseer Denmark more. But nobody stopped and said, these changes need to happen now because we need to win these games. It wasn't a 4-team playoff. You could still get in with wins against Northwestern and UCLA. And I will still defend this take. I said that if Penn State had made Kaytron Allen the true running back number 1 from the start of the Oregon game, they very well could be undefeated. At a minimum, they beat UCLA and Northwestern. If Kaytron Allen's getting 90% of the snaps, 90% of the carries across the board, they win UCLA and Northwestern. Maybe not Oregon, but they probably are still a 1-loss team. And James Franklin probably still has his job if they just make that one change. So the play calling. Kotelnicki, too gimmicky, too cute at times. I also want to put that on the fact that the passing game's just not there. And I've said this before. Look, so is Kotelnicki not making the right decisions in game? That is correct. But you also have to play the cards that you're dealt. And you don't have Tyler Warren anymore. That's another part of this conversation is you don't have that superstar player. But the idea was that, okay, Singleton and Allen will get better. And then you'll have the supporting cast where everyone's pretty equal. Trevor Peña, Kyron Hudson, Devontae Ross, the tight ends never materialized. Offensive line hasn't done well. So Kotelnicki is getting too gimmicky because he almost has to. The offensive line, major step back from what they were at the end of that 4-game stretch against some of the best teams, Oregon, Boise State, SMU, Notre Dame, where they put together some of the best tape. And there's a reason for that, why the offensive line took much of a big step backwards. So Kotelnicki is calling plays because he really doesn't have another choice. Wide receivers aren't getting open. Offensive line's not blocking as well as they should. Nicholas Singleton's really significantly regressed, and you're not putting in Kaytron Allen more. So what do you call? You can find this in another episode because I've said this before, and I kind of want to find it because somehow I was telling a fortune for the future. It didn't matter. I've said before, if the wide receivers aren't going to get open, it doesn't matter who your play caller is. Whether it's Andy Kotelnicki, who can get super creative sometimes to his detriment, or Mike Yurcich, if your wide receivers can't create organic separation, it's not going to matter. If they can't win their one-on-ones, stack the box. A defense doesn't have to respect that. Put 8 in the box and say, run the football because you can't pass it. So that's why the play calling is what it is. And I don't put it entirely on Andy Kotelnicki, but he could have made some changes, made some different decisions, of course. Then the offensive line and the wide receivers. I mean, the wide receivers not getting open that's what do we analyze there? Trevor Peña didn't get any better. It didn't help. Kyron Hudson's not a guy that is notorious for making or for creating separation, but he can win in traffic. Devontae Ross has been fairly good but that's a moral victory, and that doesn't matter in this conversation. It's the offensive line that took a step back. And the reason for that is don't underestimate the importance of an assistant coach. 2 in particular, J1 Seider and Frank Leonard. J1 Seider, I said right from the beginning, hey, that's a big loss. It seemed like Stan Drayton was the right hire to replace him. But Seider did more than just recruiting. He was the run game coordinator. Why doesn't the run game look the way that it should? Because Seider was leading that for 4 or 5 years. He is a great running backs coach. There were a lot of people that said, Penn State's fine. They'll get somebody better. He can move on. He can go to Notre Dame. I already talked about the recruiting impact that it would have because it's not like he went to USC. He went to Notre Dame. He stayed local. But he's a much better running backs coach than people give him credit for. He is a much better coordinator, scheme guy, because he helped build the running game, which impacts the offensive line, in addition to a Frank Leonard. Frank Leonard's not the O-line coach, but he's an O-line assistant coach. He's a glue guy, just somebody who has football experience that we are never going to understand how valuable that is until you don't realize how good you have and how good something is until it's gone. And that's what Frank Leonard was. And the offensive line taking a step back because you don't have that kind of influence in the offensive line room anymore. So it's all those things together. And yes, Drew Aller, look, he's out for the season. He made mistakes at points in time, but it wasn't always his fault. Your first read's not there. Are you going to force the football to somebody? If the offensive line's not going to block and give you time to go through your progressions after your first read's not there, what do? You throw the football away, or you could, because Drew made those costly turnovers, but there were other times when he could have made a turnover and he protected the football in the scheme of things. So that's why the offense has taken as how it's barely inside of the top 100. This was a top 15 group a year ago. Now it's barely inside the top 100. Those are the main reasons why. And I could be overly critical. I could go to a small instance here, really nitpick, but those are the overarching reasons. Let me know yours down in the comments section. Okay, so better late than never. Koby Howard and Tyseer Denmark, as I said, probably should have gotten some playing time. Well, now they are going to get playing time against some of the best competition. Ohio State and Indiana, they will have their work cut out for them. Why did it take so long to get them in the ball game? Well, we're going to talk about it next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's show is brought to you by Quo. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, but just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or on your computer. So no more carrying two phones or relying on a landline. Their built-in AI agent, now that's a game changer. It can answer after-hours calls, capture leads, and keep business moving even when you're off the clock. Whether you're a solo operator juggling everything or you're part of a larger team, Quo makes it easy to stay responsive and professional. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started for free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That is quo.com/lockedoncollege. You can keep your existing number for free. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and you'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel gives you so many ways to play. You can build parlays. You can try player props. You can even follow live lines during the games. Makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. And lines are available for Penn State versus Ohio State. They have been updated. Ohio State is a heavy favorite. 17.5 points on the spread, minus 1,000 on the money line, plus 640 if you're thinking a Penn State road upset. The total is set at 47.5. If you like those lines, you can bet them over at FanDuel.com and the FanDuel app. And remember, new customers, if you bet $5 and that first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across all of FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. It's about time. Koby Howard and Tyseer Denmark are going to see more playing time. I don't know why they've been grouped together, because Tyseer Denmark is going into year 2. Koby Howard's still a true freshman, but these guys have generated buzz, per James Franklin, per a lot of their teammates, since they've been on campus. And against Iowa, Denmark was creating separation when he was on the football field for a few snaps. Koby Howard was doing the same thing. Howard had a reception. These guys can play. And that's part of the reason we're here at this point in time, is because Koby Howard and Tyseer Denmark did not get the amount of playing time that they deserved. I understand that you have veterans. I understand that, guys are certainly due playing time because they understand the game better. They played a lot of college football. You can't just give out reps and snaps to whomever. I understand that from a coaching perspective, but you also have to win football games. Okay, at some point in time, if Kyron Hudson, if Trevor Peña, if Devontae Ross aren't doing their job on a consistent enough basis, shuffle the deck. I am not saying you have to flip the depth chart upside down, and I've said that before. But why weren't Denmark and Howard getting 15 snaps, even 10 snaps, even 5? They were getting little to none in the passing game. And you might question, okay, do they know the playbook? Can they block? Because they're just someone like Hudson's played a ton of college football. Same thing. Peña, Ross, other than Ross, Peña and Liam Clifford to an extent. I know people don't see Liam Clifford as a totally reliable wide receiver. I get that. But Hudson in particular, they are much better run blockers than probably the rest of the wide receiver room. But when I've been at practice, I've seen Koby Howard and Tyseer Denmark. They've been able to hold their own. They aren't blocking wide receivers per se, but they're not going to be liabilities. They're going to be able to help. So you don't have to put them into obvious passing situations. But again, it goes back to my original point. Why not give them a few snaps to see what they can do on a game day when Hudson, Trevor Peña, and Devontae Ross aren't? And Devontae Ross has been good, but he hasn't been good enough. Trevor Peña and Hudson have been extremely disappointing since the Nevada game. What you did against Nevada doesn't even matter anymore. It's every other game after that. They've almost been non-existent. And Koby Howard and Tyseer Denmark are really good at creating organic separation. They are winning their one-on-ones as year 1 and year 2 players. And to say, well, maybe they don't know the playbook as well, right? They're still new. They're still trying to understand the game of college football. Okay, in regards to the playbook conversation, well, Hudson shouldn't know it any better than Tyseer Denmark. Maybe you should understand some concepts better about college football. But Denmark's in year 2 and has already run through the Andy Kotelnicki offense. Koby Howard showed up on campus around the same time as Hudson did. So he went through winter workouts. He went through spring football. Same thing with Devontae Ross. Both of those guys are honestly, from an X's and O's standpoint, ahead of Trevor Peña in respect. Again, you didn't have to flip the depth chart over, but it was this stubbornness to play a couple of players who clearly have deserved playing time. And I think Denmark has maybe been dealing with some bumps and bruises because he's been at practice one day when the media have been there, then he's absent from practice another day. So I wonder if that does play into it, but clearly he's available. He hasn't been on any injury reports. And now we finally get to see what they can do. What can they do? What will they be able to do? Unfortunately for Howard and Denmark's sake, it's going to be disappointing because you're going up against Ohio State, you're going up against Indiana, and what am I expecting from them as far as playing time and as far as reps go? Probably give or take 20 to 25 reps. It wouldn't shock me if they still don't play a ton, but they'll see a slight increase in playing time. They're going to leave their mark, fortunately for them as individual football players, and whether their futures at Penn State, which I hope it would be. These guys are talented. Hudson, Peña, and Ross don't return. So it might be in Howard and Denmark's interest to still stay at Penn State because they'd be immediately starters next season. You are going to see them step up. You are going to see them shine against the likes of Rutgers, against Michigan State, honestly, even against Nebraska. But against Ohio State, all their cornerbacks, all their defensive backs are better than anybody that Penn State has. Okay? That's objectively the truth. But hey, prove me wrong. If you're Koby Howard, if you're Tyseer Denmark, prove me wrong. I would like to think that the matchup's going to be a little better against Indiana, but still not too much. What I do like is that Terry Smith is saying, hey, enough's enough. I've seen enough at practice. We need to make some sort of change here. The depth chart isn't going to flip over, but I think you're going to get more of a rotation. And I want to think about this aspect of it too. Why was Penn State so determined to we can only put 3 wide receivers out there at the same time? Why can't you have variations where you run a 4 wide receiver set from time to time? You put Denmark in the slot. You put Peña on the other side of the scene. You have Hudson to the outside. You have Ross to the outside as well on each side. Why did it have to always be, we can't run any more than 3 wide receivers? Nope, never, not going to happen. Just replace the tight end with the 1 slot wide receiver, whatever route concept they're running over the middle. If it's a drag, if it's a slant, I know that's very basic. I know there's more nuances to it and there's more complexity to it in the X's and O's from the football standpoint. But from my understanding of it, you just don't have him line up in a 3-point stance. You can have him run the same route, but now it's a faster, quicker, speedier wide receiver. And it's something that Penn State hasn't been doing You don't have to go air raid offense, but geez, get your best playmakers on the football field. Isn't that the whole point of this? So there's just a lot of questions that, continue to pop up. Hindsight's 2020, but the Koby Howard, Tyseer, Denmark, it's their time to shine. Unfortunately, they go into very tough matchups. So if they don't do anything over the next couple of weeks with Ohio State and Indiana, do not be surprised. But I think they will get to showcase their skills more than enough against Nebraska, Michigan State, and Rutgers, even though I know where we are talking about the Penn State football team, how the goals are a lot different. But Howard and Denmark, well overdue to get some playing time. Okay, the 2-quarterback system. I know people don't like it. I know some of you hate it, but according to Andy Kotelnicki, it's here to stay. We're going to discuss why that might not be the case, actually, coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIH Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. And Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. I know a lot of you don't like the 2-quarterback system. Some of you even despise it, but it's here to stay, according to Andy Kotelnicki in this press conference. And that's going to be easier said than done because Jackson Smolik might not be available. I don't know who you're running a 2-quarterback system with when you only are down to your last one reliable quarterback in Ethan Grunkemeyer. And now you got to keep him healthy. That was the risk of a 2-quarterback system. I get what Kotelnicki's trying to do. It's not my preference. It plays into his strengths, so to speak, as a play caller, to create stress on the defense. So I understand what he's trying to do. And Terry Smith had said, we are going to empty the clip. Okay, leave it all out there on the football field. We are going to use every tool in the toolbox to try to get a win here. And you know what? Penn State was close. No, there are no moral victories here, but 25-24, they did truly give it their all. It worked at points in time. It wasn't completely unsuccessful. Like it was just, oh, this is horrible. Why are they even calling this? No, there was some success to it. Unfortunately, Penn State doesn't really have a true mobile quarterback anymore. You're kind of forcing Jackson Smolik to do something that he's really not supposed to do. He can run, but he's not a dual threat. He's not a runner first. And that's what Bo Pribula was. But Smolik and Grunkemeyer are fairly the same quarterback. And I'm not surprised that Penn State went back to the 2 QB system, because that's what Andy Kotelnicki wants to do. He wants to run those plays. He wants to call those plays. You could have, in theory, done it a little bit with Grunkemeyer, and I think that's where James Franklin was actually keeping Andy from doing that. Because I'm actually surprised we didn't see it at all, because Grunk can run. He's a powerful runner. He's not a speedster. He's a downhill running quarterback, so to speak. Not a dual threat. And Smolik can actually throw. So I like the idea of the 2 QB system because it did give you an element of surprise. It's something to stress the defense, so to speak. And it forced Iowa to at least game plan or change something or try to figure it out. And honestly, it was Penn State just not being able to execute versus, hey, Iowa's really keying in on this. They're stopping it. They just have an answer to everything. No, it did help Penn State set up some other plays. So I will give Kotelnicki some credence there. It worked to an extent. But when you're down Drew Aller for the remainder of the season, when you're down your starting quarterback to begin with, you can't run a 2-quarterback system, because you might run into an issue where you're going to lose one of your remaining 2 QBs that can operate this thing. Okay, that's great. Beckham Kritz is coming back. 3-star quarterback in this class of 2025. Apparently he was injured. He was on injured reserve, according to Terry Smith. So he's been out. He hasn't been practicing. That's not the good news that we're looking for. It's good news for Beckham Kritza. I want to see the kid develop. I want to see him get better. I want to see him a part of the quarterback room. But that's just it. So Kotelnicki, how are you running this 2 QB system? It's not me trying to be cynical. I do genuinely mean that. Because if Jackson Smolik's not available, you can't put Grunkemeyer into harm's way, because then you're turning to a true freshman quarterback who's been on IR, who's been on injured reserve, according to Terry Smith. So that means he hasn't been taking the practice reps. That means, let alone game experience, he doesn't have the practice experience right now. And I don't think, Kotelnicki, if you're coaching for a job, if you're coaching for future employment, you are not going to run Grunkemeyer into harm's way and use him as a true mobile quarterback. Here we go, quarterback draw. And then say, let's change things up and bring in Beckham Kritza to run the football when he's never played a snap. And he hasn't taken a ton of snaps at practice as of late either. Kotelnicki's system is complicated. So Kotelnicki, I would like to think, knows what he's doing there, and he's not going to give the keys to the sports car to Beckham Kritza. And it's no disrespect to Jack Lambert. Lambert's one of the other backup quarterbacks, but again, not to a point where you can trust him to go in a game against other Big Ten competition. So while the 2 quarterback system is cool, it's fun when it works. It worked at Kansas. You had mobile quarterbacks to do that. And Kotelnicki was actually very good at making a lot of those quarterbacks look better than what they were. Unfortunately, that hasn't fully translated over to Penn State now, has it? If Smolik is available, I still don't know that you even run it. Or you run it a couple of times. Smolik was reported, he left the game with an injury. Whatever Iowa tackler, defensive back, really laid the boom. That was a big hit and knocked him out of the game. And according to Terry Smith at this point in time, his status is to be determined. They're using this bye week to assess how available he's going to be. Well, if Grunkemeyer goes down inadvertently, now you're turning to Beckham Kritza. Now you're turning to Jack Lambert. So you don't even really have the option. You now have to tell Grunk, we don't even know if it's in your best interest to scramble. Unless you have a clear view of the open football field, do not run it. Get rid of the football, because Grunk's the last line of defense on the QB depth chart right now. So while Kotelnicki may say, hey, yeah, we're going to run the 2 quarterback system, it's still part of the game plan, I say that's lip service, because logically, I don't see how you can run the risk of it anymore. If Smolik happens to be available, you got away with one. Because if he's healthy, and if he's healthy enough to play, you got lucky in that Iowa game. You might not get so lucky in a follow-up game, because then if Grunk gets hurt and Jackson Smolik's hurt, it's only going to go from bad to worse. And that's going to look bad for Kotelnicki down the road when he wants future employment. I'm not saying that's going to cost him employment across the board. It's just questionable. And I don't see Penn State just can't logically run a 2 QB system at this point. Here's the thing. If they do it, if they actually do run a 2 quarterback system with Grunk and Kritza or Grunk and Lambert, yeah, you should be frustrated. I think a lot of us are going to be frustrated, puzzled, to say the least. I'll be surprised if they actually do run the 2 QB system as much as they did against Iowa, with or without Smolik, because, like I said, you get lucky if he's healthy at this point in time. That is where we're going to wrap things up on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Appreciate each and every one of you for checking out this episode. Friendly reminder to let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. Thank you to the everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, become one. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. And that's exactly what we do here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Daily, talking about your favorite Penn State sports teams, all of them. Football, basketball, recruiting, wrestling, you name it, all right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.